Good morning, Saxon 6. Let's get started with lesson 51. Today we are going to be mentally dividing decimal numbers by 10 and 100. If you remember, just a few lessons ago, we looked at the idea of multiplying decimal numbers by 10 and 100. If you also remember back to that previous lesson, we showed in chart form how when we multiply a decimal number or a decimal number by 10 or 100, our digits are shifting to the left, but it gives the appearance of our decimal simply shifting to the right. Well, when we're dividing by 10 or 100, the opposite is true. Let's begin by looking at our lesson. When we divide a decimal number by 10 or 100, the answer, the quotient, has the same digits as the number that is divided. However, the position of the digits is shifted. Let's look at our two examples. In this case, we have 12.5 divided by 10, and our quotient is 1.25. And 12.5 divided by 100, our quotient in this case is 0.125. Notice how we've started with 12.5 when we divide by 10. While it is actually the digits that shift to the right, it has simply the appearance of taking our decimal and shifting it one place to the left. No longer 12.5, but 1.25. In our second example, where we are taking 12.5 and dividing by 100, while in fact it is our digits that are shifting to the right, the effect is that our decimal has shifted not one places but two to the left, and our new quotient is 0.125. Remember that it is really the digits that are shifting, but we produce the same effect by simply shifting our decimal. I'm going to highlight that right here in our book. Although it is the digits that are shifting places, we produce the shift by moving the decimal point. So, when we divide by 10, the decimal moves one place to the left. When we divide by 100, the decimal point moves two places to the left. I've written out a little note simply to remind you. First, let's look at multiplication and review. When we multiply, the decimal moves to the right, but when we divide, the decimal point moves to the left. And that only makes sense. Typically, when we multiply, our number, our end result, gets bigger, and when we divide, our end result, our quotient, gets smaller, and that happens as that decimal moves. Now, let's look at example 1. We have 37.5 divided by 10. So 37.5 divided by 10, we're going to shift our decimal one place to the left, and the answer is 3.75. Let's write it out mathematically and make sure we solved that correctly. Divided by 10. Our decimal goes straight up. 10 goes into 37 3 times. 30, subtract, bring down. It goes in 7 times. 70, subtract, 5, bring down an imaginary 0, and 5 times. And if you continue on to solve that problem, you know that we are now finished. And in fact, our quotient, our answer is 3.75. Let's look at example 2. In this case, we have 3.75 and we're dividing by 100. So, let's write it out mathematically. Divided by, did I write that right? Yep. 3.75 divided by 100. Bring your decimal straight up. How many times does 100 go into 3? 0 times. 100 into 37? 0 times. 100 into 375? 3 times. Multiply, subtract, and bring down an imaginary 0. Remember, we don't write decimal numbers, division that involves decimal with remainders. We simply keep adding zeros and keep solving. 100 goes into 750 7 times. 750 is left over, and another imaginary 0. 100 into 500 goes 5 times. Multiply. Nothing is left over. Our problem is finished. And 3.75 is, in fact, divided by 100, 0.0375. Now let's solve that problem again simply by shifting our decimals. Let's move it 1 place, 2 places. We have to insert a 0. We have to put a 0 in the tenths spot to hold that place open, and then a 0 in the ones spot simply to be polite. And in fact, simply by shifting our decimal 2 places to the left, we have received the same answer, the same quotient as when we wrote it out mathematically. And in fact, it matches with our book. We have solved it correctly. Would you please, in your lesson practice, do problems A, B, C, and D.